Hello again, everybody. I'm Mr. Smith. I am the principal here at Dover Sherborne. I'm entering my ninth year, and we once again are back for another school year of the Mr. Smith Show, where it's an opportunity for students and myself to interact, talk about things that are going on in school, and then just talking about some fun subjects and things that are going on in our particular lives. I'm joined today by two students who I will let them introduce themselves, and we'll begin today's show.
So I'm Alex Capillion, and I'm a senior at Dover Sherborne here.
And I'm Owen Koval, and I'm a sophomore here.
Well, welcome, guys. I know that you've got a number of questions, and be happy to answer those. And if we've got some follow-up opportunities, we'll certainly do that too.
Yeah, let's start off nice and easy with the start of the year. How did the transition from summer to school go?
Yeah, it went pretty well. You know, we're really, really excited. I know that students are happy to be back in school, probably not so much happy that you're doing schoolwork as opposed to being on summer vacation. But then again, considering where we came from with COVID and Zoom classes and kind of this upheaval, I think it's been a pretty smooth start. It's great to see all of our athletic programs, the arts going, the extracurriculars. Life in the school is pretty good. And, you know, really other than some medical considerations, including, you know, continuing to wear a mask and, you know, sort of watching our density, it's been a pretty good start to the fall. I love fall because the temperatures start to cool down a little bit, and we kind of get ourselves into a routine where we're back in school and you guys are doing what you're supposed to do to be the best students you can be, and we're here to provide you with the best possible education and experience we can.
I know we've implemented FlexBlock this year. How is it going so far?
Yeah, it's interesting. You know, like anything, any new change, time will tell on some of this. And I think that, you know, there's some mixed results right now. I think some students like it. I think some teachers like it. Some teachers don't. Some students maybe don't. We incorporated Flex for a lot of reasons because we have this new schedule, and we are really one of very few schools that has a later dismissal. We had to think about how could we do something that would still allow us to dismiss for sports without students being pulled from classes all the time. So that's where Flex helps us out there. Another major factor in incorporating Flex is it allows us to have a full-blown band and chorus program. Those programs have expanded, and we now have up to 40 kids in chorus. When I first came here 9 years ago, we had 8, and it was not looking good. We also have well over 50, almost 60 kids in band, and Ms. Berry is, you know, proud to announce that we've got sort of a full entourage of all the instruments being used, and at one point, we really struggled to put together a band just because we didn't have all the instruments because kids, the conflict in their schedules, as you know. So I think that's worked pretty well. Students are getting used to trying to time management and figure out, okay, I've got to go see a teacher. So a lot of our extra help is happening during the Flex Block. And then, of course, for seniors, we gave them the opportunity to leave because as a senior privilege and as somebody who's a firm believer in providing independence for our oldest students, we allow them to make the decisions on their time. They are welcome to stay during Flex and get help, or they can leave. And then keep in mind, another reason why we established Flex is to make connections. We're firm believers in all of our students should have somebody in the building that they have a good connection with, another adult in addition to their guidance counselor. It's an expectation from our accreditation institution, but it's also something that we firmly believe in, that if students are connected to a teacher, it's going to make for a better relationship. It's going to make for a better opportunity for them to academically perform well, to just be comfortable in case something comes up. So there's a lot of fingers, you know, that are in this Flex Block, and it's early, and we're trying to work through some of the complications of it now, of like who can go where and when, but we do think that it has great potential, and as the year goes on, I'll be continuing to update the school.
Yeah, and speaking of Flex Block, even though I've actually never gotten to it because I'm a senior, I was told at the beginning of the year that we actually can't leave if we go to see a teacher for extra help and we go to their room. We actually shouldn't leave their room until the end of FlexBlock.
Yeah, and the reason for that is we just don't want a constant back and forth flow of students. And FlexBlock is only 30 minutes. So our feeling around that was, okay, if you're going to go to math to get extra help, and maybe you just have a couple questions, right? Just something that's going to only take a couple minutes. You can still then sit in the room and finish out something. Time is always of the essence, and we have really busy students, and we feel like if you are taking advantage of that time in school to get some work done, it's less work you have to do at night. It's less that you have to worry about, and it just gives you that opportunity. Now, FlexBlock also gives opportunities for the underclassmen to just kind of relax, hang out, socialize too. So it serves many different purposes, but we do still have to have some accountability for it, and that's why we want them to stay in the room, because we're still ultimately responsible as long as you're on campus.
That definitely makes sense.
We have no more Zoom classes this year, but how can students stay connected to the classroom if they get COVID or else?
Yeah, it's a good question. And some students have said, well, what if I'm quarantining? You know, it's not something that is my fault. Totally understand and totally get it. This is a statewide decision. So this is not a Dover-Sherborne decision. The state is not allowing for schools to continue with Zoom classes. They want all in-person classes. So some of our teachers might do a Zoom extra help session maybe, but there are no more dual platforms. So any families that still wanted to do the Zoom process, they would have to sign up for an online program that the school district contracts with in order to do that. So we have a couple of students who are doing that, who've decided that because of COVID and because of concerns that they may have with family members and becoming ill, that they have chosen that online version. But it's not taught by our teachers. It's taught by a separate organization that we provide them the credits with.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
You know, it is really cool because my math teacher, Mr. Amber, actually has all of his pre-recorded lessons still saved. And so he says if we ever miss a class, we have access to those lessons. And it's very easy for us to catch up that.
Yeah, that was an absolute silver lining to all of this is we had our teachers create in the math department these flipped classroom models. And some of you may have a flipped classroom or you may not. But many teachers created the videos. So it's just a great way for you to connect to say, hey, I missed, the long equation. I missed the ratios. You can go into the library of Google Classroom, and you can find that lesson. The other way that we're telling students to keep in contact is through the Google Classroom. So all of our teachers now are using it, whereas prior to the pandemic, maybe 25% were using it. So now they're all using it. There should be assignments on there, links to documents. Many cases, the textbook is there, not in all cases, but in many. Assignments and Google feedback forms, too. So we feel like it's a good basis to give you information. We know that students are still going to be out sick from time to time that might even be non-COVID related, right? Just a cold or, you've got the flu or whatever, or you have a concussion. This, we feel like, still allows you to stay in touch with your teachers via email and the Google Classroom. But Zoom is not allowed by the state, not just DS.
Oh, that's interesting. And speaking of the state, I know there was some talk about revisiting the mask mandate. Will there be any changes in the near future?
Yeah, it's an excellent question. So right now, the governor and the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education has come out with this new protocol saying that they are extending the mask mandate through November 1st. So first it was October, now it's November, because they're still looking at data. They want to look at numbers in communities, right? But they are saying that school districts can appeal by October 15th to the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education as long as their school and community rates are well over 80%. We're very fortunate here in that our school rate is something like, with our faculty, it's like 99%. Our student rate is super high too. It's in the mid-90s. Our community rate is in the 90s. So we'd be in good shape, but it has to be approved by the boards of health, Dover and Sherborne, and then school committees have to then vote whether or not to lift the mask mandate. So I can't predict what they're going to do. My sense is they'll probably extend it for a little longer. I personally see us keeping these on till at least November. But I do think at some point it's going to be under local control. It's no longer going to be a mask mandate for the whole state, but rather local districts can make the decision based upon their own numbers, which I think is fair too, because if our community is doing a really good job of vaccination rates and safety protocols and everything, and we feel as though we can do without the mask, that's great, because some communities their vaccination rates are much lower. Some parts of the country, it's like 20%. We're in the 90s. So we're in a good position. I know that there's mask fatigue, and I get it, because I myself feel it too. We just have to hang in there a little bit longer, and I do think that at some point in time this year, we're going to be able to remove our masks.
So now you don't think we would appeal on October 15th?
Well, I think that the boards of health will probably take up the question, and school committees will probably take up the question. I don't know for sure which way they'll go, but I don't think it's a foregone conclusion that they will appeal to say we don't want masks anymore. Because I think they're going to lean on the medical professionals to say, okay, our vaccination rates are 95 plus. But they may also say, okay, are we seeing any breakthrough cases? Because as you know, there have been a few, right? We've had a couple within our school, a couple breakthrough cases of people who are already vaccinated but contracted the virus. And it's not so much that they're having heavy-duty symptoms, but that can travel. So, for example, you contract COVID and you and I are in close proximity to each other. You have no symptoms. Say you get tested, you have no symptoms. I then say, oh, I better get tested. I get tested. I have no symptoms, but maybe somebody in my home then ends up getting it. You know what I mean? So I think that's where they're going to probably be more cautious than anything else. But that doesn't mean that they won't move forward with it. So I'm speculating. But as of October 15th, they can submit a appeal to the state and to the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education to waive the mask mandate. And that really comes down to the boards of health and the school committees.
Oh, interesting. And now
so it's not a decision I make. Just like school snow days, people will say, why didn't the principal call off school? That's not my decision. That is the superintendent's decision. And not that I'm trying to put more pressure on the superintendent, but I think sometimes there's a misinformation about who makes what kind of decision. I don't determine the mask. I just have to enforce them.
Yeah, I definitely think there's a lot of confusion around that for sure.
Does that make sense? That, it's possible that they will appeal, but they may extend it another month and then next month file the appeal. Because I think that appeal will continue to, be a moving target.
Okay. And now I know you said that our officials will most likely side with the medical professionals, but you also said earlier it could eventually go to a local decision after, around November. Do you have any predictions as what our local officials will decide?
I really don't. And when I say medical professionals, the members of the boards of health are elected officials both in the town of Dover and Sherborne, and they are medical professionals. They are MDs.
Oh, okay.
So they get together, they look at the data that the state provides and that the local towns provide. They look at trends, you know what I mean? They're looking at lots of data, and then they make decisions. In some cases, the decisions they make trump the school committee. So the boards of health have the ability to say, we want a mask mandate in the towns of Dover and Sherborne. Like right now in the city of Worcester, they have an indoor mask mandate in every public building. And the boards of health in these communities have that right and that authority to do so.
Oh, that's very interesting.
Yeah.
Going back to DR and Flex Block, will there ever be privileges for juniors to leave?
So, we had some discussions for that. So we felt as though we compromised. I'm a firm believer in senior privilege is really for seniors. It's something that you've then earned as you get to that point. And does that mean juniors couldn't handle it? No, of course not. But we do actually give some privileges to freshmen, sophomores, and juniors already, and that's that you can sleep in first period if you have a DR. So you don't have to come in. If you have a DR first period, as a freshman, a sophomore, and a junior, you do not need to come into school and attend that DR. You can sign in afterwards, and there's no penalty. So that was done so that students can get more sleep. If you want to come in, or if you're taking the bus and you need to be here, of course you can come in and go to the DR and get work done. So we give you some flexibility there, but I really am firm in my belief that senior privileges are for seniors, and I'm not interested in an open campus right now. I think that last year we gave open campus pretty much to everybody, but that was because we were in a much different situation with the density of COVID, and we really didn't want the same number of kids in the cafeteria. And keep in mind, last year we had one lunch, so during inclement weather, everyone's packed into the caf. We use classrooms and everything. Now we have 2 lunches, so there's less density. Seniors can still sign out if they have a DR, if they have the time. And I think that's the direction we're going to head for now, that we're going to maintain it as a senior privilege.
Oh, interesting. And speaking of changes, will we ever go back to the original start time, or is the late start permanent?
So I would say that we're certainly going to look at the later start and the data from that for a longer period of time. Not just 1 year or 2 years. Last year was really a tricky year to determine the success or the failure of the late start because of COVID, right? COVID just totally threw everything out the window. This year, we are looking at metrics like, what's our attendance look like? How many students are tardy? Has it changed our discipline referrals? Are students reporting better academic progress? Are students reporting more sleep? So the later start time will be a collection of data. We will then present and review that at the school committee level to make some decisions on it. I think it's what's best for students to have this start. I really do. I think we've worked through some of the concerns that students had about the end of the day with regard to sports and dismissals and after-school jobs. And while it's not perfect, I think starting the day at 8:30 is just a more reasonable time frame. All the scientific data points to the circadian rhythms of teens, and frankly, at 6 o'clock in the morning, you are still in deep REM. And if you know anything about REM sleep, that's the time when you really are recharging and re-energizing your entire body, and your brain is filtering. So that's why we feel like 8:30 is great. Now, some teachers don't probably love the 8:30 because it now changes their life and with their kids, and if their kids go to different schools. But our first focus has to be the students, what's best for students here at Dover Sherborne, and I do believe it's starting at 8:30.
What's the deal with snow days? Will they become virtual?
Snow days, yes. One of the most important questions I'm asked each year. It's like, the edge of your seat. Who's going to win the Academy Award? Last year, we did one snow day, and I think we had one Zoom day or something like that. Well, we don't have Zoom anymore, so we really will be reverting back to more traditional snow days. So students, I'm sure, who watch this, and parents to be aware of, we will be having snow days. Now how many? Who knows? The weather will determine that. That decision is made by the superintendent of schools in conjunction with local law enforcement, local DPWs, looking at road conditions. So what they look at is, can the buses adequately make it through the various streets and roads of Dover and Sherborne? That's one of the first things. They also look at sidewalk areas and bus stops. Are they safe where kids can be at those spots to get on those buses? Those are the first considerations. Driving of teenagers, well, certainly that's on my mind as the high school principal. That's not one of their top priorities. It's probably 3 or 4. The first one is, can the buses make it through the roads? Are the kids safely at bus stops? And then I would say it's probably, can kids who are traveling and teachers who are traveling, can they make it safely to school? We may have some delays too, right? We may delay school, which sometimes that's all that we really need. And keep in mind, for Alex, who's a senior, he wants as many snow days as possible because he doesn't have to make it up. But you, as a sophomore, probably don't want too many because then that cuts into your summer. So getting a few is good. Having too many is a problem because then it just extends the school year because you do have to make those days up.
Now let me ask you about when they evaluate snow days. Do they, what time is that? Do people go out?
5 a.m. Sometimes superintendents will actually go out on the roads. Law enforcement will call into them saying, we're driving the roads and this is the condition they're in. They'll work with the Department of Public Works, who is actually doing the plowing, and they will tell you, and then they look at the forecast. So it's really a number of things. They sometimes will also discuss it with area superintendents too, to say, what are you thinking about doing? So there's a lot that goes into it. It's not a great task that the superintendent has, because you want to make sure you get it right, because there have been some times when school's canceled and the roads end up being fine, and then parents and guardians are mad saying, my kid's home and this is a wasted day. So it's a very complicated process. There are some storms where it's a no-brainer, right? It's just timing is everything too. So sometimes you could have a storm that starts 9 o'clock at night. Well, by 2 or 3 a.m. it's over and the plows can get through. Our two towns do a fantastic job. They really do, because we have a lot of narrow, windy roads in these communities, and they really do a fantastic job of making them safe. If the storm's coming at like 4 or 5 a.m. and it's going to go all the way through to 10 a.m. and it's going to be heavy snow, they obviously take that into consideration too, because they have to think about, okay, the time process of how are we going to get people here, and is a delay even going to make sense if it's still snowing hard at 9 a.m. and that's when we've delayed it to. So that's really kind of how it happens. I think sometimes there's this big mystery of, as a person behind a curtain making the decision. It's actually a lot of communication that's happening early in the morning. We also try to make a decision early, too, out of respect for teachers who are traveling from quite a ways away. We have teachers from Rhode Island, from Central Mass, from Western Mass, from the Boston area, who are coming to work, and we want to make sure that they can get here safely.
Now, another question I have around it, because I have been very interested in the process and the making of snow days for my entire academic career.
It's a priority.
I've had them called the night before and the morning of. Now, what's the difference in communication there?
Yeah, excellent point. So I think sometimes superintendents, years ago, they would only make it the morning of. There's been a new trend to make the decision at night, because with increased ability of understanding weather patterns, radars improve so much, towns can determine when the storm's going to hit, traffic flow that's happening within the town. They sometimes will make the decision at night, especially when they know that the timing of that storm is going to be at the worst possible time. It's going to be during the commuting time, and it's going to go all through the morning. Other times, there's a snow-rain mix line, and they don't quite know, and that's why they tend to wait till the morning on some of those more unknown storms. If they're predicting heavy snow or they're predicting major ice, superintendents a lot of times will make that call at night, which certainly helps a lot of different people. It helps people make decisions, in terms of daycare for families and all that, and getting to work.
All right. And I know you're a big college football fan. How's it looking this season?
It's been great. One of the things that I love is we've got full stadiums again, and I know that makes some people nervous, but it has been fantastic. I had the pleasure of going to see a whiteout game at Penn State a few weeks ago, which is something that was on my bucket list, and I'm going to be heading to Iowa in a couple of weeks to see Iowa play Purdue. So for me, it's something I really enjoy. I get to meet different people in different parts of the country, and it's been a great year. Some of the top teams are still there, Alabama and Georgia, but one of the teams that I think is a wild card to look out for are the Cincinnati Bearcats.
Ah, interesting.
Yeah.
We appreciate the hot take.
Not a problem. Well, I think that about wraps up our time. I really enjoyed talking to you guys and hopefully giving some clarification around how decisions are made and how things happen. I wish both of you an outstanding academic year, a successful, happy, healthy year, and look forward to seeing you again the next time.
Thanks for coming on today.
Thank you.